Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the deferred sale trust, is an amazing way to exit highly appreciated multi-million-dollar exits, crypto, business, real estate, so you can create and preserve more wealth and have timing back on your side. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great country of New Zealand, and place that I want to go to. I've never been. And he's going to be talking about his Bitcoin ETFs, altcoins, adventures is the way we're titling this. But he's a cryptocurrency enthusiast, and he makes regular videos exploring the satirical side of the news and fact-filled reviews and interviews and so much more. Please welcome show with me, Lark Davis. Lark, how are we doing?
Doing great, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I've been creating content in crypto regularly since 2017. It's been one hell of an adventure actually making content in this space. It's one thing to be an investor in the space, a whole other thing making content, but it's been a pretty wild journey. Really, it started off as documenting my journey as a cryptocurrency investor, what I'm learning about, what I think about stuff. And that's morphed out into a whole business where we have our newsletter and we sell courses and we're doing, huge amounts of content because, of course, the bull runs back. People are interested in cryptocurrencies again. People want to know about cryptocurrencies again. Nobody wants to know about it when it's $15,000, but now that it's $65,000, whatever it is today, everybody kind of wants to know about it again.
All the rage.
Psychology works. But look, I got started off in crypto just as an investor, but very quickly just completely red-pilled myself. And I remember my first moments in crypto as an investor and just having this sort of just like, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing. This is what I have to go all in on. And I actually quit my day job in November of 2017 as an English teacher before that. It went all in on crypto and content creation. Obviously, it was a very hard decision when 2018 came and we had then the bear market, and it was tough, but I kept going. I thought, no, this is not going anywhere. Crypto's not going anywhere. Bitcoin's not going anywhere. This is going to be a massive industry. And of course, it is becoming an incredibly massive industry. And now we have Bitcoin ETFs and stuff like that, only just further solidifies that reality.
I'm fantastic. I love it. And I love that you went all in. And I love that you switched the careers. And I love that you're having so much fun doing it because, yeah, it can be such a, I feel like crypto out of all the markets of investing seems to be the most interesting, fun, crazy, exciting people. I grew up in real estate, but I also grew up with technology. I'm an 83 born. I'm the guy who, one of the ages that, knew technology before it really got going and without it, cell phones and video games and the whole thing. And so I feel like I've always kind of been, I like to nerd out with the geeks, when it comes to like tech stuff. And I feel like crypto gives me a piece of that with investing versus the real estate that can be kind of just blah, at times and kind of boring, kind of just, consistent, although I still love real estate. But what's been your biggest, since the time you started doing what you're doing to where you're at now, what's been the biggest, I guess, reward to be able to create the content and explore crypto like on like a day-to-day, full-time career basis?
Well, it's definitely not boring. That's one thing that is 100% true. I look at the spectrum of asset investing and you go from like bonds to like the most boring thing. Maybe ETFs is next, depending on your ETFs. I guess some ETFs can be exciting. And then you go up, okay, you're getting into dividend stocks, still kind of boring, but, sometimes kind of cool companies. Then you get like tech stocks. Okay, that's cool. That's cutting edge. It's fun stuff, And I guess gold's right back with bonds, probably isn't the boring scheme. And then you get to crypto, and it's just such an exciting industry where there's so much happening all the time. And because it's such a new industry. See, I look at tech stocks as being relatively equally as exciting, although we don't really talk about tech stocks on the channel. I invest in a little bit of that stuff. Sure, it's fun. I like it. It's very interesting companies out there to be investing in and things to be exploring, obviously. But when it comes to crypto, I think the culture's just so different. Like, I don't know. I just don't feel like bond investors or ETF investors are out there, sharing memes and stuff like that about whatever going on culturally. And I feel like there's this whole unique internet culture that has risen up around cryptocurrencies that makes every day an exciting time in the industry, especially because it's such a growth industry right now. We're continuing to see all these stories coming out. There's always something interesting to talk about, something interesting happening in this industry. And we're seeing it continue to metastasize like there's this old movie. It's called I think the Blob or something like that. But anyways, this big gooey blob comes down to earth and starts absorbing everything. And crypto in a way is doing that. And it's interesting. We made a video on BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. And our sort of thesis of the video was, well, has BlackRock absorbed Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin absorbing BlackRock? And you actually start to see, when you look around the financial world, so much is coming on chain now. Gaming is coming on chain. Digital ownership is coming on chain via NFTs. All kinds of money is coming on chain from the traditional world. We have real estate coming on chain. We have bonds coming on chain. We have tokenized funds coming on chain. BlackRock just put $100 million on chain the other day. Like, there's big things happening. And so to be at such an early stage in an industry where there's always something fun and exciting to talk about, it's great. As a content creator, it's great. I have a lot of fun every day.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it feels like also at the time that we're in right now, the political change, the financial change, the real estate changing, the interest rates, and inflation, and gosh, countries, study Ray Dalio a bit, right? And what's going on there with just the changing of the power with currencies. And gosh, it's just so deep and fascinating to see how it's going to play out, right? And to be able to capture that and how you're capturing it and be able to study it full time. Like we geek out about tax flow and real estate is our main study and practice. However, we also invest into cryptocurrency, and my kids were mining. We're mining. We have some Ethereum mines, although we should be probably turning them back on at this point. We turned them off for a while when everything kind of crashed. But all that being said, talk about how cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, was made for times like this, and your overall just sense of where we're at this, $70,000 a coin, and maybe. I feel like it's been adopted by a percentage, but now I feel like it's just going to exponentially be rapidly adopted.
We are at a mainstream adoption moment for Bitcoin with these ETF products. This is the big liquidity event. I like to say this is a once in a market liquidity event for the cryptocurrency markets. Bitcoin's just the first one. We will get other ETF products coming down the line. Obviously, the SEC right now is kind of dragging their feet on an Ethereum ETF, so it might be a while for that. But other coins, perhaps Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash, are pretty obviously commodities and could become ETF products as well. We'll see if that trend ends up happening or not. But it's a very interesting time to be in crypto because everything's kind of coming true that Bitcoiners have been saying for a long time. Now, if you go back right to the creation of Bitcoin, when did Bitcoin get created? Why was Bitcoin created? Bitcoin was created in the ashes of the 2008 financial crisis. The blockchain started in 2009. So you go back to that. And the first block, Satoshi Nakamoto, he put in the first block a newspaper headline. And right at the front of it was chancellor on the brink of a second bailout. Satoshi knew what he was doing when he made Bitcoin. He knew that the world needed something better in terms of a monetary system. And is Bitcoin going to be the end state of all monetary systems? No, but it's revolutionizing what is possible with money. It's flipping all the traditional models on their heads. And it's interesting to see how much Bitcoin, of course, continues to go up exponentially versus fiat currencies. I was talking about this on my live stream yesterday, but it's a very good point. There's $100 right here. Now, this one's from about 2006. Since 2006, this has lost about half of its purchasing power, which is crazy. Had I had a bill from when I was born, almost 40 years ago now, had I had a bill from when I was born, that would have lost something like 65 to 70%, maybe even more of its purchasing power. The dollar is in big trouble right now, and it's never been in bigger trouble in its history, to be honest. If you look at everything that's happening, like you said, go read Ray Dalio's work on changing world orders, and basically everything that Ray Dalio talks about is what's happening right now in the USA. And the loss of its reserve currency status is going to be the sort of final nail in the coffin of US empire, if you will. And then what do you have after that? Monetary chaos? Perhaps. But we do have so many alternatives right now. It's probably not going to be the euro because it's so closely connected to US empire. Will a BRICS currency arise? Well, BRICS is already talking about using blockchain technology for their currency. When they release it, there's been rumors that it'll be a gold-backed or commodity-backed currency backed by gold and a basket of stuff like silver and rare earth minerals and oil, gas. Whether or not that transpires remains to be seen. But the US dollar is slowly but surely trending in the wrong direction. right? It's been used too many times as a political tool, a political weapon against too many countries in the world. And the massive printing of money, $34 trillion in debt, it's an unpayable amount of money. And so you start to add all these different things together. And I don't necessarily want that to happen because the lost reserve currency status in America, the end of the US dollar, means a lot of pain for a lot of people. And that sucks. And I hate it. But it's just the inevitable reality of history of what's going to happen. So in that kind of scenario, and where we have the US dollar slowly fading, where we have the rise of other currencies internationally, where we have this threat of central bank digital currencies, which are Orwell couldn't have thought of something more nefarious and evil than central bank digital currencies that come with all kinds of programmability, from being able to turn off your account at the very simple level so you can't transact, or simply telling you what you can or cannot buy. Hey, John, you've been drinking too much this month. You're not allowed to buy any more alcohol this month with your CBDCs, for example. Or, hey, John, you've been flying too much this year. You're not allowed to buy any more plane tickets with your CBDCs. Sorry. And guess what? CBDCs are basically your only money. So these kind of things can come into play when you start thinking about it, or even other stuff like your money comes with an expiry date. Again, this is from 2006 and I can still spend it today. Your CBDCs, what if they come with a 6-month expiry date? You have to spend them within 6 months or they go to zero. Now, for most people, they don't hold on to money for 6 months, but that creates a whole new problem for the investor class, who then is forced to not be able to sit on any cash, and you have to just continually invest. Otherwise, you're going to lose your money. Continually buy, otherwise you're going to lose your money. This is all programmable within CBDCs. Now, I know, well, they're not going to do that. Have you been paying attention to what government's been doing recently? I assume that if they have the ability to do something, they're probably going to do it at some point, maybe not immediately. So then you've got all that, and then there's Bitcoin standing there as the world's freest money, the world's hardest money, with a fixed supply, the ability to send it to anyone, anywhere, at any time in the world. Doesn't matter about race, religion, politics, any of that kind of stuff. It's a very, very powerful tool when you understand it. There's a little bit of a long answer there, but I hope that hit the main points.
Lark Davis, you're nailing all the points. You can find Lark, by the way, on X, formerly Twitter, for those that don't already know that. Find him on X. He's going live just about every day, at least 5 days a week, on X, and also on YouTube, Lark Davis. Yeah, so much there to unpack, and I guess I just want to just be digging into the changing world order with Bitcoin and the irresponsibility of government spending and debt, right? And this just drives, I think, most people crazy, especially high taxpayers, right? Where the lack of transparency, accountability, and responsibility to be great stewards with wealth. And so a lot of people flock to owning real estate, right? Something they can own, manage, control, hard asset, right? Tried and true. And Bitcoin is another one. And they're going, look, it's something that's going to be more flexible, not as hands-on and management intensive. And I have flexibility to not have to be tied to a single government that just continues to just be I feel like they don't care, like $34 trillion at this point, right? And then you just see all the stuff they keep passing and pushing. I'm talking about America. I'm not sure for you, Lark, what you're seeing over where you're at, right? But it's kind of maddening, right? And so it continues to feed the momentum with Bitcoin, and it's here now, and it's exciting. So I couldn't agree with you more. Any other thoughts on the changing order with Bitcoin?
It's amazing how irresponsible. I look at central banks like this. They're either irresponsible or it's actually all part of the plan. And both of them are equally terrifying, because it means that the people who are in charge of running everything are either the biggest idiots in the world or there's some real evil bastards. And both of those are problematic, because you have to look at $34 trillion in debt in the USA. And this is, again, very late stage empire stuff, devaluation of the currency, overstretch of empire, internal conflict, all this stuff. Again, look at Ray Dalio's stuff. He's just studied history and how every empire has collapsed, and America has made every single one of those mistakes. Now, it's not about bashing on America or something. It's just the reality. It's just the reality. You can argue the facts if you want, but those are the facts as they stand right now. No reserve currency has stood the test of time. And actually, the US dollar might be a relatively short-lived one in the grand scheme of things, if it doesn't make it till, a couple more decades. So you have to understand that there is some deep stuff going on out here with these central banks and the money printing, and it's very nefarious. It's very evil. Money printing is essentially a hidden tax on you because, again, it is devaluing what you have already. And you're not the one to benefit from it. When they print money, where does it go first? It goes to the banks first. So the banks get to front run you on the inflation and the devaluation by buying up assets before you can get your hands on it. So in terms of the macro scene and what's actually going on with money right now, you have to understand that modern monetary theory and what the central banks are doing, it's all an experiment. It's all a big experiment, this fiat currency stuff. It's all backed by trust me, bro, from the government, which is a terrible model. And I don't trust them. I don't trust the central banks. I don't trust anybody who can rack up $34 trillion in debt. And if you're in the USA, you'd understand that interest on the debt, we're not talking about paying down a penny of the principal. We're talking about just the interest on the debt is on schedule or is now the number one line item on the budget. Now, that is absurd beyond belief because think about all the other things you'd probably, if you're a taxpayer, like to see your money spent on instead of paying down $34 trillion. And that, again, not even paying the principal, you're just paying the interest on it, which is insanity, right? And that's all for, and what was all that money racked up for? Foreign wars and all kinds of BS like that. Nothing that actually made your life better, but you have to pay the interest on it now with the majority of your tax money pretty soon. It's a broken system. It's a broken world order. And that is, again, part of why Bitcoin has been the response monetarily to all of this, because Bitcoin offers hope for a lot of people that there is a better system. You can be your own bank. Bitcoin is not run by central bankers who can inflate the supply whenever the heck they want. Bitcoin has set code and you can trust the mathematics. You just have to ask yourself some question. Who would you rather trust, central bankers or math? I like math personally.
Lark Davis, this is fantastic. And yeah, couldn't agree with you more on everything you're saying there. And now there's some accountability, right? Hopefully, right? And hopefully, Bitcoin by essence has the transparency, right? And now let's see what happens, right? This is good. This is good. Now the ETFs, are in place. We can talk a little bit about that here in a second. But you touched on one thing I think was interesting. You said, either they're irresponsible, right? Which is bad outcome. So the biggest idiots, or they're actually really, it's their plan, right? To do what they're doing, and it's a poor intent or evil intent. And either way, it's not a good outcome for the people, right? And I think about the reverse Tea Party, right? I think about how America came to be, and I think about this and the Tea Party itself. We fought for, rights, right? And the ability to have a voice and we have freedom without too much taxation. If we're going to pay tax, we want to have these rights, right? So we broke away from England. All right. Now guess what's happening on 240 plus years later? It's what's called the reverse Tea Party. That's what we're kind of coining it. And it's this, there's $84 trillion that's estimated to transfer from about 80 million baby boomers in the next 15 to 17 years at this point. And it's known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. So this is another perfect storm that's happening right now, right? There's never been more wealth transfer that we know of from one generation to the next in such a short time period. Now, 50% of the total net worth, Lark, is tied to high-end primary homes, businesses, private equity, and commercial real estate. Those are illiquid assets that are subject to huge capital gains tax, okay? And so if they sell, they get crushed by tax. That tax is somewhere between, call it 20 to 50% of the proceeds going to get wiped out. All right. And so the second part of that is the government has what's called the biggest government mousetrap. It's 40% death tax on anything that's above, basically as of 2026, 12 million married or 6 million single. By the way, if you're from New Zealand and you own, assets in the United States, you basically have, I think, like a $64,000, $68,000 exemption. So if you built up $100 million real estate or business empire in the United States, they're going to take 40% of that when you die. They're just going to thank you. That's our mousetrap. And I think of it like the reverse blob. Their blob is that 34 trillion. And is that 34 trillion, along with all the tax that they're going to try to, absorb into their blob, going to absorb, which blob is going to be bigger, right? The Bitcoin blob, or least versus the tax on the exits of these assets. And so all that being said, I ask you this, right? When you guys sell, if you sell, what's the biggest frustration when it comes to capital gains tax? It's maybe different than New Zealand and such, but what do people do when they want to be able to try to exit at different times and defer capital gains taxes? What have kind of been your strategy?
Tax is always a very problematic question, isn't it? Very frustrating. When it comes to selling your cryptocurrencies, obviously we have very different approaches depending on what country you live in. But New Zealand's not super tax friendly towards crypto. There's been a push for more definitive legislation on crypto and specifically how it's taxed and stuff like that. Because in New Zealand, you get there's no capital gains tax on real estate. They've made some exemptions now where it's like you have to hold the property for 5 years or something like that, and then there's no capital gains tax on it, and there's no capital gains tax on stocks. Cool, right? Crypto does not fall into that basket, so there's the full tax on it, basically. Now, one way that is possible to try to reap some kind of profit out of it, so to speak, but not actually have to sell and hit a taxable event, of course, is to borrow versus your Bitcoin. So this is something I've done recently, but it's tricky because your straight Bitcoin, it's problematic to try to find a lender you can trust. So you have to actually go on the blockchain to find a smart contract platform, but Bitcoin currently doesn't really offer very much of that natively. So you have to go and wrap your Bitcoin and put it on Ethereum or something like that, which creates a taxable event because you're going from Bitcoin to wrapped Bitcoin. So it's problematic. It's problematic. I feel like in New Zealand, and I've had long discussions about this with my accountant, there's not any real great strategies for trying to reduce the amount of tax that you get hit on when you move from one thing to another. And obviously, it's a big question when you go to sell. Take care of your taxes. And I always tell people this is that worry about the tax. Don't not worry about the tax man because the tax man is going to worry about you. And a lot of people get in the trap of where they'll sell something, create a massive taxable event, not really think about it at the time because it's not like it's being taken immediately, right? And then they'll go into another high risk asset in crypto. And this is one thing that I think I can give out as a message to people in crypto who are cryptocurrency investors, because it's a very, very problematic scenario because things move so fast in crypto. So you might get into some random coin and it goes up 10x, for example. You take your profits and you say, great, I'm a genius. This is fantastic. Now I'm going to take that money and put it into another coin. Well, guess what? The next coin goes down 90%. Okay. So there's a bit of a write-off there, but you're still going to owe money, or maybe hold that coin for much longer and you don't get it till later, for example, any kind of deferments. And so whatever you had on that initial gain, so in New Zealand, it'll be 39% likely, then you owe that money to the government. So my accountant was sharing an interesting story with me about a guy who made a whole bunch of money on Solana NFTs and then sold the NFTs, put all the money into Solana, which then went down 90%. And the government's like, yeah, well, that's great. Sorry about your holding that asset that's down 90% right now, but you actually owe us a whole crap load of money for all those NFTs that you sold into Solana. So be careful when you're moving between assets in crypto. Understand that every time you click the sell button, there's probably a taxable event attached to it.
You know, this is part of why we exist, right? And is to help people with this. In fact, we helped a client who exited. She had 50 million in Bitcoin. She never sold a coin until she met us. At 54,000 a coin, this is before the last crash, she sold 5 million into this trust that we work with, capital gains tax solutions. And this trust, it's interesting. You mentioned borrowing, right? Borrowing against, and you can, if you borrow, it's not a taxable event, right? When you borrow, take margin, right? Well, we do it in a scenario where you actually exit. She exited the Bitcoin by selling it to a trust in exchange for a promissory note. So she sold it on an installment. Someone has an installment sale for IRC 453 for U.S. citizens or anyone who has assets that are subject to capital gains tax. But the point is, she's able to defer it, 54,000 a coin. Now, the rest of her capital, I called her at 60,000 a coin and 65. And I said, hey, you want to sell some more? She's like, no, I'm going to wait. And, you know, the rest went down to 15,000 a coin. I think the low, right? Now we're about, 64 today, I think, but we were high as 72. It's come back, right? After a couple of years. But the point of all this is there is a way to do it. I mean, this is my premise, Lark. Let me tell you what you think, right? The goal is to sell high and buy low, but never let capital gains tax be in the way. Right. So if there's a bridge between where you're at and where you want to be, you can be capital gains tax free, where you can sit on the sidelines. You can also diversify into multiple altcoins or into real estate, all tax deferred. Right. And you can create wealth on your timing. Right. And this is this is what we do, right? So any thoughts on just being able to do that and not having to feel like the tax man is going to be the boogeyman is going to come get you?
Oh, the tax man definitely feels like that sometimes, doesn't he? It's interesting. I can't speak very much on what the U.S. scene is like, tax wise, but again, I feel like we've got a real deficiency here in New Zealand when it comes to crypto tax law and ways to, have creative accounting measures, let's say. But I say for anybody out there listening, if there is any tool that you can take to obviously legally reduce your taxes as much as possible, definitely go for it. Actually, here's perhaps an extreme example for people, and probably not something that most people can do, obviously, because look, most people like where they live. Most people want to be close to their families, all that fun kind of stuff. But there are quite a few countries that have no tax on crypto. El Salvador, now the safest country in the Western Hemisphere after the current government cleaned up the streets, no tax on Bitcoin. Of course, you may run into trouble when leaving your country with a bunch of assets. And if you're an American citizen, unfortunately, your government owns you wherever you go in the world, and they will always want money from you, regardless of where you are. So that's a bit trickier for Americans. For everybody else listening, you have the option to move to more tax efficient countries. Portugal also has 0% capital gains on crypto. Obviously, the UAE, very famously, places like that. We see a lot of crypto people moving to the UAE and specifically to have more tax efficient lives. But Americans, you can't, because when you live overseas as an American, America still wants your money wherever you are in the world. As long as you have that passport, they own you.
There it is. This is Lark Davis, everybody. And you can find him on X. And if you want to learn about how to build a Bitcoin capital gains tax exit plan, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also wrote a book on it, by the way, and it's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. Really simple to give you the option in the playbook to sell your Bitcoin, Ethereum. We just actually did our first NFT deal last week. We've done over $13.5 million just with 2 clients, and plus another $600,000 for NFT deal. People were able to exit, defer the capital gains tax. Proven structure, thousands of closes with mostly real estate and business, but now it's available for cryptocurrency. But you got to get started. You got to get a plan in place. And you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started right now. That being said, Mr. Lark Davis, we're running out of time. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's go.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you make sure to tell yourself to do?
Drink less, invest more.
Very good. Question number 2. What's the number 1 book you recommended or gifted most in the past year?
That's an interesting one. I feel like one of the books I keep coming back to is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Classic book. It's timeless wisdom, even though it was written 70, 80 years ago now, still 100% relevant today.
It's one of the best. I read it every year. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
Interesting. At the moment, I'd say, quite a few different things coming to mind. I would say at the moment, I'm probably most curious about, I don't know. That's a fascinating question. I think of all kinds of different things in crypto and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't think I have a great answer at that.
Yeah, we could also be more specific. We could say, like, is there like a certain project, like, a certain crypto project? Is there a certain coin? Is there a certain thing that's like, hey, I'm really kind of curious about that and how the outcome is going to be on that? And it could even be like you said, the Ethereum ETFs, like how that might go down and what that might do.
Yeah.
Like, anything come to mind?
Tell you what, I'll throw this out there. I'm very curious about meme coins right now as a financial instrument, right? It's fascinating to see how I'm watching. I have a few meme coins, right? But I'm not certainly into this crazy degenerate gambling that a lot of people are into. I play around a bit for fun because it's part of the culture. But I'm fascinated by how crazy meme coins have become. And I know for a lot of people, meme coins, oh my gosh, it's just some useless cryptocurrency that has a picture of a dog or a cat or a frog or something. This is totally dumb. Why would people buy this? But then I kind of had this epiphany moment. I feel like I'd been mid-curving meme coins for a very long time. And essentially, meme coins are tokenized culture, which is a fascinating way to think about it. When you start thinking about it like that, what's one of the most important things on the internet culture? Here's a tokenized way to actually speculate on that. Anyway, that's something that's been I've been grooving on recently, let's say.
I like that. Hey, by the way, I heard about today, there's something like Bitcoin 2.0 or something like an NFT for Bitcoin. I just heard this. Like, I have anything. What is that? Or do you know about that? Or like, it sounds like it's something that's really catching some momentum here.
Yeah, so for a very long time, Bitcoin was just kind of Bitcoin. Buy, hold, send money to people, whatever. But not much else was going on there. In the last maybe year or so, we've seen an explosion of use cases starting to come out on Bitcoin with different tokens. And now we have a whole bunch of new things that are going to be launched in terms of being able to trade on top of the Bitcoin blockchain layer 2 stuff. So not directly on top of Bitcoin, but the next layer up, secured by Bitcoin, but a sort of more user-friendly level in terms of being able to do trading and stuff like that. People have been launching NFTs on Bitcoin. People have been launching tokens on Bitcoin. And so the Bitcoin ecosystem is really starting to take off for really the first time ever, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, totally excited. And I was like, oh, wait, sounds like that's been missing and now it's here. So that's pretty cool. Second to last question, favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Interesting. Funny. I've read a lot of books on leadership and all that fun kind of stuff. I'm not sure any quote particularly comes to mind.
It could be a theme.
But I always liked the idea of, as a leader, you have to be sort of out there in front as well. Be the actual leader, not the guy with the whip behind saying, you guys go out there and do this, but actually getting out in front and being willing to get in the trenches, essentially. With your team and stuff like that. And I've got a big team these days with the newsletter and stuff. So it's very much that case. We're in it all the time, not just me saying, okay, you guys do everything and I'm going to sit back. But yeah, that's kind of the thought I'd share.
Awesome. Like it. Number one way you use ChatGPT.
Number one way I've used ChatGPT. I think I've used it quite a bit for running different ideas on video titles. That's probably one of the things I use it for the most. So YouTube video titles. So if I come up with a title, say, Bitcoin is exploding right now. Okay, let's put that in ChatGPT and tell it to give me 20 different alternatives with, different ideas. And it's a pretty good way to brainstorm a bit. It's a really great brainstorming tool, I think, in general.
Lark Davis, this has been more than a pleasure. I know I feel like I'm a better man now that I know a little bit more about the Bitcoin world, right? I just feel like, I'm also more enlightened is a good way to think about it, right? And I want to encourage everybody to get to know you a little bit better and connect with you and find you. So maybe you can offer just real quickly, like if people want to find you, A, tell them where, and then B, also like services, right? Like who are you serving? And, maybe someone wants to, pay for something that you have. So basically, what do you got? Just go ahead and share it. Because I think people are going to want to connect with you, Lark.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. So look, come find us on X or YouTube. Just look for Lark Davis, verified accounts. There's a lot of impersonators out there. Unfortunately, make sure you find the verified account of us on YouTube or X. And we're sharing loads of information, loads of educational stuff there on a regular basis. Lots about the news going on in the cryptocurrency market. We have a great newsletter as well. It's called The Wealth Mastery. So this is a weekly crypto newsletter, basically covering all the hot stuff happening in the market, as well as all kinds of money-making alpha in the industry, whether it be the latest, hottest airdrops, NFT mints, meme coins, whatever it might be. We're covering all the bases in the cryptocurrency market. And you can find that at thewealthmastery.io, or just come over to X and find in the pinned tweet where you can sign up for free. It's free. We got 110,000 people reading a week. So go and check it out. And we also have courses available if you're a beginner in the crypto industry. So those are all available there in the links as well.
Lark Davis, thank you so much for being on the show. I also want to thank our listeners for listening to the episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. By the way, we're also streaming on Build It to Billions, so you can give it all away podcast, as well as the Expert CRE Secrets podcast. And I feel like we've covered a lot of things here, right? With real estate, with Bitcoin, building wealth, the changing world order. Wow, we covered a lot in 37 minutes or 34 minutes. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you want to take action right now and not get caught and not be able to sell high, to defer your tax for any US-based capital gains tax, especially with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Appreciate everyone listening and watching out there. Please